Today's episode is going to be really exciting. A lot of people have questions and concerns about how to find the right how to find the right product, how to find the right market, and how to identify that. Well, in today's episode, I put together some tangible physical ways that you can look and identify products and see if they're going to work even before you get them private labeled and launch them in the market. What we're going to do is use my private label product checklist. This is something that I created. This is available on my website. I would encourage you to go there and download it. You can stop the audio or video if you want and then be able to come back because we're actually going to go through that today. You would go to markscottadams.com/free-training and you'll be able to download this, as well as there's some free videos on there that you might could watch later. But anyway, come back to this and print that out and then come back. And what let's do, let's see if we can go over this. But before we touch on this, I just want to go over a little bit of the mindset of picking products. This is something that trips some people up, so let's see if we can make it a little bit more simple for you. Picking products is really, really not hard. You really want to start out and think of that inverted pyramid. Literally, you start out broad, and then you kind of come down and get narrow. There are some products that are going to work, and obviously some that are not. But really, when you can look at a market, especially after you've been doing this a while, you'll be able to look at a market very, very quickly and see if you think there's opportunity for you to come in and create a product and be able to get a place in that particular market. A lot of people think that, well, gosh, it's got to be a top bestseller. It's got to be the #1 listing on the page before you make money. Well, as of this recording, there are 20, sometimes 24 listings of a product on an Amazon page. Well, sometimes when you go into it, that #1 product may be selling, gosh, who knows, a gazillion a day, and they're making $1,000 plus a day off of that product. Well, okay, go to the 4th product, the 7th product. Those products might be selling, obviously not as much, but they're still selling enough to where you can make money. Everything I teach is to try and get up and running. If you want to eventually go in and try and overtake somebody at #1, it's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, a little more money and resources and skill to do that. But I still believe the simple philosophy is go in. What if you had 10 products that were #7 on a page in different categories? Each of those products still might pay you $1,000 a month. And in this example, of course, that's like $7,000 a month. But whatever it is, think about and realize what the product is that you're doing in the market that you're doing. One of the things really to start out is to look at basic sales rank. And BSR, you'll hear it, the acronym with Amazon. You'll be able to find that as you scroll down the product page. And just to kind of give you a point of reference, there are a lot of different tools, and we're going to cover those here in a second on the checklist. But if something's selling under $5,000, that's, again, it's going to depend on the time of the year. It's going to depend on the category and some other factors, but that's an item that's selling extremely well. If you've got an item that's ranked in the 5,000 to 10,000 category, that's still an item where you can make lots of money. I mean, you still might be able to make a decent amount of money if the product ranking is 15,000 to 20,000, depending on the sales price of the item. But anyway, as you take this in, I want you just to try and think of the mindset that you don't have to have the #1 product in a category to do well. And there are a lot of people who fly under the radar and have that 7th, 8th, 9th product on a page to do it. I think you want to try and be able to get on the first page, and that's right, and that's possible if you do your research well and follow this checklist we're going to go over. But with that said, let's take a look at this, and I'm going to assume you have this. I'm going to go down, and you really don't have to have it if you don't, and I'll just read off. Is the market viable? And I think that's really your first question. That's really what you're looking for. And I've got maybe 10, 12 different things to look at this. And on this checklist, there will be numbers you'll see over on the right. It's either a 0 or that number. And then if your product or your market fits those, just circle it, check it, whatever you want to do, and then add all of those at the end. And then there's a number at the bottom you'll be able to see if it's a good product or if it's viable or not. I think the first thing you want to do is the whole concept of Amazon selling is there's so many accessories, so many different products that you can sell that are not national name brand products. For instance, if you wanted to go in and sell a camera, you're going to obviously have to compete with Nikon and Canon and some other national name brands. That's going to be a pretty tough uphill battle to fight. So that's not really what you're looking for. Maybe in that scenario, what you're looking for is some type of ubiquitous camera bag, some accessory, some kind of lens cap cover, just to stay in the category or the camera market, for instance. You want to stay away from national brand categories. If something is totally dominated by a national brand, that's probably not an area you want to go into. Maybe an alternative would be, say cutting boards. You really don't think of a national name brand manufacturer when you think of cutting boards. However, if you've got a good cutting board and good pictures and all of those things, somebody would buy that where they're not necessarily looking for the national brand. So step one, think of if it's a national brand product or not. Now, the average sales price, I really think it should be somewhere between $15 and $60. One of the things to realize is you will have some Amazon fees involved in your selling your product. And it varies by category and some other factors. But typically about 15% of the product is going to go to a sales commission of Amazon. And then somewhere $2 to $4, somewhere in that range, depending on the weight and size and some other factors, are going to go to Amazon for them handling all of the things through Amazon FBA. Well, if you factor those in and the cost of your item, if you're selling, say, an $8 item, there's not going to be a lot of margin left for you to be able to do things, for you to be able to run PPC ads, which are pay-per-click through Amazon ads. So think through and try, if you can, to get an item that's somewhere around $15. And if you can do an item that's more expensive, that's fine. My thought for your first item would be maybe try and do somewhere around an item that you can do somewhere in that $15 sales range. If you get more advanced and you're willing to put more into your inventory, then maybe a higher priced item would work out well. But when you're just starting out, try and look at the price range of your category. If it's under $10 and, maybe 12, 13, 14 maybe is viable. My first product was actually $12.99. But try and keep your price somewhere $15 or more, so you have a little margin to work with, and make sure that the items on that page are there. And by the way, the whole concept of this is to try and package a little bit better and be unique in how you present the product, so you can charge a little bit more than the average price of the products anyway. But anyway, try and keep it somewhere $15 to $60. We talked about sales rank a moment ago, but try and keep your sales rank. Look at the first 3 items on that particular page, and then scroll down and look at their sales rank. Obviously, 1 is the most sales, and the higher the number, the lower the sales. But make sure that there's enough sales in that category that you have at least a few items that are doing less than 10,000. You don't want to have one item that's doing top 100 seller and then nobody else is selling. And then you can obviously make the argument there's room to go into that market. But if you've got multiple sellers there, that means if you market well and create a good product, you probably could go in and get part of that market. So make sure you understand what it is you're looking for when you're doing the sales rank. When you're looking at reviews, the top items are probably going to have somewhere a couple hundred reviews or up, maybe not. Sometimes they might have less, but it's doable to get reviews in a variety of ways. But you want to make sure that the first item or the first several items don't all have 10,000 reviews. It's going to be pretty hard to overcome that and be ranked at that level if you think it's going to take that amount of reviews to take over somebody in that position. But then again, go down and look at the 5th spot, look at the 6th spot. See what they have. If they've got 27 reviews and the next one has 82 reviews and the next one has 47 reviews, those are reviews that you can get to be able to be listed on that page. Because again, listing is a factor of how much an item is selling, and Amazon will call that sales velocity, the amount of reviews, quality of the reviews, and then the amount of conversions, meaning the amount of people look at it versus the amount of people who buy. But reviews are a big part of it, to where if you get off to a good start and get a lot of reviews, you very, very quickly can be very highly listed on that sales page, and then your sales are going to follow. But just make sure that it's just not so many reviews that you can't get in. The next thing to look at when you're looking at markets is look at multiple keywords. We talked about cutting boards a second ago. Let's say you had a cutting board, and that would be one keyword. Really, a keyword phrase means keyword in this context. What if you had chopping board? Could you list your products under that? Amazon actually gives you 5 keywords when you set your item up to be able to describe to the people who are looking what your item is. If you only have one main keyword, it's kind of tough to depend and rely on that one keyword, because obviously things can change. A little bit of diversifying your keywords here, I think, is a good thing. But just make sure you can list it for multiple words. Are there pay-per-click ads under those particular keywords? For instance, many times you'll see Amazon pay-per-click ads on the side of the page, on the right of the page, or at the very, very bottom. And you'll be able to identify those because they'll say sponsored. If you've got people who are there and are spending money, that means there's money to be made in that category. And I would track that over several days and just make sure that you've got somebody who is staying there, which indicates that they're making money, and it's a viable market. The other thing in this is you're looking and you're evaluating products. Is there something that you can add to that particular market with your product? Because all of the products are going to be somewhat similar, but can you make better packaging to make it appear nicer and more expensive, more exclusive? Can you bundle something with it to make it more attractive to that individual seller? Because the last thing you want to do is just come in and make it exactly the same product, buy it from the same supplier, and then throw it out there. Because if you do that and say that person has 100 reviews and you had 4, why are they going to buy yours if it's the same exact product? Unless you simply want to compete on price. If you do this the right way and find the right market and the right product, you should be able to charge more for price and let the less informed sellers fight it out on price. Product is durable and unlikely to break in shipping. Now let's take a look at the bamboo cutting board we talked about a moment ago. And you think about that, that's not something that's wood, it's solid, it's bamboo, it's tough, it's durable. If that's shipped, even if the delivery driver drops that, is that going to break? Probably not. It's been a while now, but I had somebody who wanted to do whiskey glasses. And I basically talked them out of it because it's very small and thin as a glass. If they are coming in and packaging those and somebody gets damaged in shipping, ultimately somebody's going to leave you a 1-star review, even though it's not your fault. Even if the delivery driver threw it against your stoop and it breaks, well, they're going to complain and you're not going to get as many sales. So try and make sure that your products are durable, and most importantly, that they're easy to understand how to use. For instance, like a chopping board, you put on something, the meat, the vegetables, whatever they are, you chop them. There's not a lot to learn there. If you've got a complex thing that requires an instruction manual, you might ought to think twice. But make it durable and keep it simple. The product leads to subscriptions. You'll see a lot of people doing lotions, supplements, vitamins, things like that, because Amazon actually has a program to where once somebody orders, they literally can get on a subscription list to wherever, say, a 30-period, 60-day period, whatever the product is, you can have it automatically sent to you. And that's an ideal thing right there. It's not the end of the world if a product is not on a subscription. None of mine are. But at the same time, that's an ideal thing. Okay? Again, realize this is a guideline. No product is going to be perfect, and no product or market is going to meet all of these. But I put this together to help focus on what's important and have as many and score this. So if you hit enough points on this, you got a pretty good product. Does the product lead to multiple purchases, or can it also be used as a gift item? Now, let's take something, let's just say that bamboo cutting board. Let's just use a cheese board as an example, since we're talking about that, very similar type of item. You might buy that for yourself and like it, but if it comes in a nice enough gift box, you may then go back and buy that as a gift for somebody else, a birthday, holiday, Christmas gift, whatever that might be. And you're going to get some additional sales that way. If you're looking at something that's a replacement part, nobody's obviously buying that as a gift. That's just you have to have it when you have to have it type of thing. But try and think in bigger, broader terms in that market. Is it a gift market as well? The product is not a commodity, and it's easily purchased at a local big box store. You might want to try and do something a little bit different here that you can't just walk into your local Walmart and buy. A little creativity in your product. If it's the more unique the product, the more likely somebody is to want to buy and expect to buy it online. So you take and put all those things together, that's a pretty good overview, a pretty good idea of what are some things you should be looking for in your market. You'll get a good feel, you'll get a good look of the pictures of the individual sellers. Are they doing a good job of their pictures? Can you look at those pictures and say, yeah, I can do better pictures, I can do better copy, and I can take advantage of all these other things. If you can do that, you probably got a pretty good market. So with that said, that's kind of the market. Let's go down and let's take a look at the product aspect of this. Now, one thing that you want to try and do, and again, I want to emphasize that these are all guidelines. Nothing here is an absolute. You want to try and keep your item as light as possible, maybe say under a pound, because the less an item weighs, the less Amazon charges you to store that item in the warehouse and to handle it and fulfill it through FBA. A pocket knife, something small and simple like that, would be far, far less expensive than, say, a barbells for weights, where you're lifting weights. Obviously, you got night and day on each end of the example there. So there's something called the FBA calculator, which is go ahead and Google that, and you'll be able to go in and put your item in and then see what some of your costs would be. Just take a competitor's item, put it in the calculator, and it will show you what some of the handling costs are. But again, if it's a lightweight item, say less than a pound, you know it's going to be the least expensive possible. The other thing is an item smaller than, say, 8 inches, and again, whatever the metric equivalent that is, but basically, is it smaller than about this? And that's roughly, I guess, 8 by 8 by 8. And I do that more as anything, not that 8 by 8 by 8 means anything tangible. By having something this size, it just gives you something to visualize, because if something is small, it's not massive in size, and it's probably less in weight, and you're not going to get killed on Amazon fees. So if you've got a product that is small and lightweight, you're probably in good shape. Now, that doesn't mean you can't sell heavier items, okay? It doesn't mean that at all. But when we're getting into this, just try and have your item and look at it and ask, if everything else on this checklist is great, but your item is 2.6 pounds and it's 12 by 18 by 18, you're okay. You know, it's not the end of the world. The other side, the smaller the item is, the smaller your shipping coming in from China or wherever else you're getting that item. So, again, try and think ahead of everything you're doing here in your product. Okay. Can the product stand out with better packaging and branding on it? You'll see a lot of items where there even be a generic item that don't have any branding on it. You never want to do that, and that's a whole other subject. We'll talk about that a whole other time. But can you add value to the product is really what we're saying here, whether it's, again, through putting some type of nice packaging, nice box. If the standard is a cardboard box, can you do it in a wooden box? If the standard is a wooden box, can you do it in a, I don't know, like a phone jewelry type box? Seems like every time I give my wife jewelry, she values the jewelry, but she always keeps the box. I've never understood that as a guy, but a lot of women, it's my understanding, do that. So packaging does matter. It's paramount in allowing you to stand out and build a premium brand, because ultimately that's what you want to do. You don't want to be able to build you can't be Walmart. The only one person can really sell on price. So you're trying to do something a little bit different here. Now, the other thing in this is when you're looking at your profit margins, you want to be able to have an item in an ideal world that is, including your freight, that's 20% of your sales price. So let's say, for instance, you want to sell you want a sales price of $10. That means your item and your shipping together should be no more than $2. Does it mean if it's $2.14 it's not a good item? No, of course not. It depends really on ultimately total dollars, and more important than percentages. If you think you can sell 100 of those a day, you know, and your total dollars meet your goals, then you're fine. If you have a higher priced item and you don't have the same margin you have a lesser margin than maybe you would on a lower price item, then you're still okay, because again, I want you to count total dollars. But just think through your equations and your percentages of what you're doing. And again, what I look for, and sometimes I have done less, but what I look for is about 20% of an item as far as the cost to the sales price. And again, that does include shipping coming from your manufacturer. And then the last thing on here that you really want to look at is what's your MOQ, which stands for minimum order quantity. Everything you'll find when you're dealing with a Chinese supplier, and we'll talk more about this in other episodes, but everything is negotiable. You'll see many times they'll have 1,000-piece minimum orders, 5,000-piece minimum orders, whatever that is. And sometimes they will stand hard and firm on that, and that's okay. Try and look at it through your supplier's eyes. They're not here just simply to serve us. They're there to make money too. And the way they have things set up, they have a certain minimum number for them to turn the machine on that makes it worthwhile to manufacture that particular item. However, it does not hurt to ask. You must realize that in Western cultures, we really have gotten away from the art of negotiation. Seems like I think whether it's just a house or a car is about the only thing that we really negotiate on. But in Eastern cultures, it is much more of a negotiation type of culture. So you have to stand firm, and you just have to ask. And if you hear no, well, you hear no, and you're no worse off. So in this, ask for a minimum order quantity of 500 pieces or less, or ultimately whatever you're comfortable with. But a product is much more viable overall if you have to put less in it. Now, I will say on minimum order quantities, make sure that you have enough to cover your promotion and that you don't run out from the time it takes to get new items replenished into inventory. Because it's a shame if you could do all the promotion and then you run out of items because you didn't put enough into it in the first place. Not putting enough in is sometimes worse than putting too much in. So think through your process, estimate your sales velocity or your amount of sales over a period of time, and make sure that you've got enough to cover that. And then when you have this, add up your points on the side of the paper, circle it, check it, whatever you want to do. And then we've got different things depending on your point total that should tell you if your individual marketing product would be a good product for you to try or not. Now, with this, I've been using this for a while now, and I refined it a little bit as I go along, and I found it still to be very, very helpful, because some people follow things to the letter, and if it hits everything, then it's perfect, and they don't put any emotion in it. I look at an item, and I kind of let my heart, my experience, my brain look at a market, look at a product, and see if I can feel good about it, and then I go back and work all the math. To me, if you're like that, this helped me balance things out. So whatever, you got to know who you are and what your personality is, and then apply it with this and let it balance what you're doing a little bit. But that's it really on some things on finding a viable market or product. Some other questions are, okay, well, that's kind of what I'm looking for. How do I find a product to sell? Well, that's the art of doing this. That's the part that makes you a merchant. That's the part that makes you a business person, is that there is no go look at this, go do that, and find this product. However, I will tell you, one of the things you can do is literally walk around a store. Here in the United States, there's a chain called Bed & Beyond, and I'm sure there's something comparable other places in the world. It's a big kitchen and bath supply store. Just walk around and put yourself in what I call Volkswagen Eyes. It's funny. When my daughter was little and we'd be in the car, we'd be traveling, and there was a game, and I can't remember exactly what it's called now. Many of you will know what I'm talking about. It was the Volkswagen Punch Buggy something, where if you saw a Volkswagen, whoever saw it first got to punch the other person in the arm. And since I was driving and trying really not to kill us, she would scan the roads, and she would see a Volkswagen coming along, and my arm over here would seem to just hurt by the time we would be on a trip, because she always won because she was paying attention and I really wasn't. But when you're in a mode to look for something, in this case, she was looking for Volkswagens. When you're in a mode to find products, I call it Amazon goggle mode. You put your Amazon goggles on, you go find a product. It's amazing how when you're looking at it, every time you see a product, would this be an Amazon product? Could this be an Amazon product? You start looking at things in a little bit different level. You walk around whatever store you want in whatever category. Another thing you could do is go sit in a bookstore and look at all the magazines, look at all the hobby magazines, look through there. And you're not looking for the name brands that they're featuring in the stores. You're looking for the accessories. Flip to the very, very back of the book and see what type of accessories people are selling in that particular category. There's all different types of ways of finding product. It is mostly art of finding it, but the checklist and the different things we went through today will help you refine it a little bit so you can make ultimately a better decision. And with that said, kind of want to wrap things up a little bit today. This particular episode was really, really one more that's a little more technical than some of the other ones that I've had or will have in the future. But this is something I wanted to try and give you at least some type of a systematic way to evaluate your products. And if you use this, and I use this on every one of my products, you'll find that this can be very, very helpful. So with that said, let's go to our next segment. Let's take in some questions, and let's go to Mail Time. Mail Time with Mark? Mark with Mail Time. Now let's go Mail Time with Mark. How about that? See you in the next segment. All right, let's take a couple of questions. If you'd like to submit a question, go to the website, which is markscottadams.com, and just enter it there on the contact form. The first question comes from John. It says, how do I create the actual packaging for the product? Well, John, that's a good question. One of the things you have to realize is that, and we'll cover this a little bit more actually in our supplier section when we get to doing an episode on that, but most of your suppliers will have everything ready. They're like it's semi-homemade, if you will, to where they have the product already made and they're designed to take your logo, your branding, and put it on packaging. Really, all that you'll need to submit for your product will be more or less a logo. And if you want to go full-fledged and change the packaging, in most cases, you'll have the opportunity to do that. But there really is no standard answer to that. I guess there is no established standard, really. Each supplier will have different ways of doing that. And really, when you're communicating with them, you simply ask them what it is that you need or to supply, and they'll do it. Many times they'll have in-house art supply or art people, art departments who will be able to do that. So, good question. Another question here. This one comes from Kim. It says, what about branding? What about the strategy of branding? Well, I think what I try and teach my students is that it's not just the first product you're trying to do. When you're looking at a market, when you're looking at a product, try and think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 products out to be able to create a series of products. Because when you have multiple products, you can cross-promote. You can do all types of things that will allow you to increase your sales by having multiple products. So I think it's also important from a branding standpoint that if and when you ever choose to sell the business, if you've got a collection of mismatched type products, it's not going to have anywhere near as much value as if you had a line of products that you could sell to, say, a wholesaler, another Amazon seller, a distributor who would want to take those products and sell them in retail stores or sell them e-commerce, whatever you wanted to do. So with that, I think that'll wrap up this episode. I thank you very, very much for listening. I think next time we'll get into talking a little bit about dealing with suppliers. So in the interim, good luck on your Amazon business. Look forward to seeing you back.